Hey, happy Healthy Women family. I am so excited to be back with you for another Fearless Friday. And I have the beautiful Whitney joining me today. And I'm just excited to, one, take a moment to pause this Friday and just talk about something that, I know we're all going to be dealing with this summer. So excited to just have that conversation. And then just to pause for a moment to take a moment for ourselves, because as women, we know we're out there doing everything for everybody, and so taking a moment to just discuss what are our needs and what do we need to do to make sure that we're filled up is an important thing to do. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for taking the time to do that for yourself as well. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Meg Heppner. I'm the branch director out in South Surrey, British Columbia. I've been the branch director here for 2 years, and I'm so excited because we're about to have our first in-person event at the end of this month. So for those of you who have seen some in-person events coming up, aren't you excited? I know I'm excited. And I'm also a life coach and the host of the Art of Being Human podcast, which I'm sure you've seen somewhere because I post it. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me. But Whitney, tell us about you.
Yes, so I'm Whitney Coupland. I am a trailblazer with South Surrey. I've been around now as a trailblazer for about 6 months, and that time has just flown by. I can't believe we're halfway through the year already. And my daughter just turned 5, which is crazy as well. 5 is a big one.
Huge.
And yeah, so what I do is help people with autoimmune disease and chronic illness navigate the diet, lifestyle, and mindset aspects that are involved in starting to feel like yourself again. So I'm a certified nutritionist, autoimmune paleo certified coach, and a life coach as well. So I can help in many different facets of autoimmune healing.
Oh, I love that. And when we got on our call today, you and I chatted for a few minutes before we hit record, and you said, "Hey, what do you think if we talk about about this?" And I was like, "Yes, let's talk about this." So one of the things we want to kind of dive into today, which you have so much experience with, is this idea of maintaining your healthy habits when you get into a season where it's exceptionally difficult, right? So we're going into summer, and summer is all we think we're going into summer. I don't know what the rest of the country is doing. British Columbia has not yet realized it's summer, but we're going to get there, I'm sure. I don't know what the rest of the country is experiencing, if they're already in summer, but very technically we're moving into summer. And summer means barbecues. Summer means nights out on the deck. Summer means, going out and experiencing food trucks and festivals and all this kind of stuff. And for those of us who are dealing with some type of, health issue, I'll use that term very loosely, or just simply want to maintain a healthy lifestyle, summer can be a minefield. And so how can we maintain our healthy standards, maintain, the habits we've created that are contributing towards our health when we have all these experiences that we have to navigate now?
Yeah, so there's a lot to consider. I was recently away with 5 other families staying in one massive cottage. All of the families had kids under the age of 5, so it was a bit of a chaotic situation. But just from my own experience as a person with autoimmune disease, going into a situation like that, which was 3 nights spent at this cottage, and also through observing how the healthy individuals around me behaved around food and alcohol, I thought, this is a good reminder for everybody about, how you can behave and how you can be accountable to yourself in these types of situations. And of course, I'm a big fan of planning ahead of time and preparing. That's the number one. You need to think about the situation that you're going into, especially with someone who has dietary requirements. At this cottage, we were doing meals. So each family was taking on a meal. And that would have been so lovely to sit back and not have to prepare food. I would only have to prepare 1 meal in 3 days. How amazing would that be? But due to my own dietary requirements, I knew I wasn't going to be able to eat a lot of what was there. So I had to, luckily the organizer made a spreadsheet. So every family had, their meal and what they were bringing. And I was able to see, okay, I think I can have some of the grilled chicken there. And I can, if they're making fajitas, I can have, the lettuce and the chicken or the steak or whatever it is there. But I knew I had to bring supplemental food with me. So that's one, is like knowing what's actually happening, what's available to you, and where do you have to be accountable for yourself and responsible for yourself when it comes to food. And this often comes up with my clients when we talk about traveling by air or by ferry boat or train, where there's going to be some kind of food service offered and it might not be in alignment with what you're currently eating, and having to plan and prepare ahead of time with non-perishable goods that you can bring with you for the duration of the trip. So that's always the beginning.
Yeah, it's so interesting because something that was coming up for me when you were talking about that, I remember when I first started to have to eat differently than everybody else. And I would come to the realization that I couldn't act like a healthy person, a healthy person. Maybe that's not the right way of saying it, but I couldn't act like a healthy person around food, right? Like, and I realized, that terminology is maybe problematic, but like I would see my husband, he would go, to a buffet or a potluck and just be like, oh, I can eat everything. And I would come up to the potluck and go, oh, eat that maybe? I don't know. Let's see what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I first started to have to pack my own food, I'm not going to lie, I cried. Like I literally cried. And I remember it was at Christmas time and I would have to bring my own food to Christmas meal and I would literally be crying. I'd sneak off to the bathroom and go I can't believe I can't have mashed potatoes and blah, blah, blah. And I was so upset. And now that I've been doing it for a few years, now it's second nature. It's we went out for Father's Day and I had my little backpack of all the food that I could eat. And the emotions that come up when you are first having to accept that responsibility can be extremely difficult. And maybe I'm the only one who kind of went through that, but I know I'm an emotional eater. And so I had to deal with a bunch of emotions that came up when I couldn't self-soothe with food. And so taking that first step and going, okay, I am going to be responsible for this now can be really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, you're not alone. I think every person that is on this journey has some version of that. And what I like to keep in mind and how I work with my clients is I ask them what their favorite foods are. What are your favorite types of meals? Maybe it's pizza, maybe it's tacos. And we just come up with different ingredients to make the same final product. So we're keeping it as in alignment as possible. And so when I went away to this cottage, I wasn't trying to deviate from the meal very much. Like if they were having tacos, I brought my own gluten-free taco shells and I still had tacos with them. And when they had chili, I brought something similar that I had made ahead of time, so I still felt like I was included in a sense, but that was myself making myself feel included. It wasn't something external. And then treating yourself. So if you are going for a picnic or a day at the beach, buy yourself some treats that you don't normally have. Even if it's you go to the store and you buy a cut watermelon, that's you're oh, the cut up watermelon's so expensive, you never buy it. But if it's your special day and you want the cut up watermelon, buy it for yourself. Grab a kombucha, grab dark chocolate. There's so many different chips on the market now that are made with avocado oil or olive oil. You can get sweet potato chips, cassava chips, all kinds of different jerkies. There's a lot of option out there. And if you feel like you're treating yourself, when people are having Ben and Jerry's ice cream now, I look at it and I'm like, no, I don't want it. I don't want it. But I brought my own coconut bliss, for example, which is coconut milk ice cream. And I'm like, if I had the choice, would I have yours? No, I actually like the way that I eat better because it makes me feel good and I know the ingredients are clean. So yes, that's where it happens, is treating yourself and feeling like you're included.
Yeah. And and I'm curious if this is what many of your clients go through as well, because this is what you're talking about. To me, is like, oh, so important, because when I first started eating healthy, I never treated myself. Like I didn't bring any dessert, and then I just sat there while other people were eating dessert, feeling sorry for myself, going like, I can't believe I can't eat that. And I learned to like bring something that I can do, bring something that I can do.
Mhm.
And I remember at first, so like we have a Krispy Kreme close to us. My
Oh,
kids say it's close to us. It's a half-hour drive to this Krispy
okay.
Kreme, but our kids are like, it's close. It's just in Delta, mom. And that's just like the way to get me to go, right? And so I remember like for special occasions, my husband loves Krispy Kreme. My boys love Krispy Kreme. They're always like, let's go to Krispy Kreme. And then they don't just buy a donut, they buy like a 12
The
pack
box.
of like every time, right? So then it sits on my counter and I'm like, oh, because I can't eat Krispy Kreme. And it's such a funny thing because in the beginning, I would make myself these really healthy unbaked cookies, and I would be sitting there eating my healthy unbaked cookies while they were eating Krispy Kreme. And at first, I still felt sorry for myself, but it was
Mhm.
really amazing because after a while, I went, wait, I just had a dessert that was good. It was delicious, and I feel good.
Mhm.
I don't have the heaviness in my stomach. I don't feel sluggish. My digestive system is not causing me massive discomfort and pain. And slowly but surely, it started to shift for me where I started to so value the healthy feeling that I no longer felt like the taste of Krispy Kreme was worth it. I'm like, not worth it. And so it's really interesting because I also had to give myself some time. I would say, like, honestly, depending on the food, like 6 months before I went, I wouldn't eat that even if I could now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Which is amazing. And I think sometimes really just reminding yourself that this takes time can be super beneficial.
Mhm. That this takes time and that this is a choice.
Mm,
Because you could eat the donut, right?
yeah.
You're deciding not to. It's your own personal choice. And yeah, it would be nice to be able to eat the donut and have no repercussions afterwards. But when you do get a taste of what it's like to be healthy and feel healthy again, that
Mm,
definitely trumps those cravings. And I know we've talked about it on one of these Fearless Fridays before about cravings outside of like hormonal and pregnancy things
yeah.
being thoughts, because if you do go and occupy yourself or get distracted, the craving goes away. And so we know that it's not living in our body as a craving, it's living in our mind.
Yeah. I love that. And okay, so this is going to be like a little bit of an off-topic example, but it makes me think of this. Like when you talk about you could eat the Krispy Kreme and have no repercussions. It's really interesting because like I have an autistic son, right? My youngest son is autistic. And so we have to be really careful what he eats because you notice the effects of sugar on him. Whereas my oldest son, he also has the sugar, but you don't notice. Like there's no behavioral changes, there's no whatever, right? And yet his body is having the same response. It's having the accelerated heart rate. It's having, all the different things that come with eating a high sugar treat. And
Yes.
so it's such an interesting thing because one of the things to remember is even though the symptoms aren't noticeable to you, that your body is still going through the stress of it. And it
Yeah.
reminds me of, and again, this is an off topic example, but it reminds me of when I bought white couches for my living room. Okay. So when I
Mhm.
bought a white couch for my living room, I remember my in-laws and my family coming going like, that's an awful decision. It's always going to look dirty.
Mhm.
And I said, but your couch is just as dirty. You just don't see it. So you don't do anything about it. I see it. So, like for my couch, you can take the covers off and wash them because they're like, you're always going to be washing. I'm like, truth is, I'll probably have a cleaner couch than you because I'm actually cleaning my couch. Your couch is filthy. You just can't see it because it's a darker color.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, yeah, that's kind of true, actually. And it's a little bit like that with healthy eating, right? Like my husband can eat everything that he wants, but he's still having the accelerated heart rate. He's still clogging his veins. He just doesn't notice it. Whereas the minute I eat something unhealthy, my digestive system goes, guess what you just did? You made a decision that's not healthy for your internal organs, right? And sometimes that's a good reminder that
Mhm.
helps me make it a choice.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because otherwise I would feel like there are no repercussions for other people. No, there are.
Yes.
They're just not noticing them.
Yes, and I definitely had a mindset shift with my thyroid, because when I
Mm.
go off track, my thyroid gland gets inflamed and it feels kind of like a golf ball in my throat. Like it's quite uncomfortable. And I started thinking of my thyroid gland as my compass. Like it leads me, it tells me if I'm on
Mhm.
track or if I'm off track. And that's actually valuable, because there is an option when you have Hashimoto's to have your thyroid removed. But if I had my thyroid removed, I wouldn't have the indicator that tells me if I'm on track. And so maybe I would go back to some of my old ways of eating, thinking everything was okay, while in fact, the autoimmune response is still happening in my body. And just because my thyroid is out doesn't mean those antibodies aren't going to go and target some other system in my body over time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting, right? Because sometimes my husband will say this sometimes. I have a few brother-in-laws that can eat whatever they want, they never gain weight. So they can eat like the sweetest or the most carb-filled meals, they never gain weight. And I used to say to my husband, "Ugh, I wish I was like that. Like I could just eat whatever and never gain weight." And he's like, "No, because what happens then is you fool yourself into thinking you're fine because you only use weight as a gauge." But
Yeah.
he goes, "That's not healthy. Like their body is still under stress, even though you can't see the physical changes of weight gain." And this is
Mhm.
why sometimes you go, "Oh, that person's always been thin," or "That person's always seemed healthy." And then all of a sudden there's a heart attack or something like that. And you go, "What? What happened?" And it's like, well, all these years of stressing your organs, it was still taking its toll. There was just never any sign that they clued into, which reminds us that sometimes these health issues can be real gifts because we're cluing in. Our body is giving us a symptom that makes us aware because
Mhm.
our food, man, like the things that are happening to our food are not good, right? The chemicals and the things that you're reading the label and you're going, "Wait, I can't pronounce this. This can't possibly be food in my food," right? And
Mhm.
so it's weird to think of a health challenge as a gift,
Mhm.
but it can be a gift because it makes you aware and you weren't before.
Yeah. Well, the signs and symptoms that our body shows us are just that. They're clues that something isn't going well,
Yeah.
something's out of balance. And our bodies work so hard for us to keep us like balanced and in harmony. And they're always working for us. And that's actually one thing that I like to point out in the autoimmune community is we talk about antibodies or auto antibodies attacking us, attacking
Mm.
ourselves. And it's like, no, they're actually there doing the best they can to protect us. And then over time, if we don't do something about it, our body starts to scream at us. But when we do start doing something about it, really, no matter how far along we are in our health journey, even if we've had a Crohn's or colitis for years, if you start now correcting some of those things with diet and lifestyle, your body will respond.
Mm. You know, that's such an interesting thing. Isn't it funny how there's hidden messages that you don't think of because the terminology is common? Like an autoimmune disease is your body attacking itself, is
Mhm.
really making your body an enemy, which is an awful mindset to have if you're trying to get healthy.
Mhm.
Right? And it's like you don't even notice sort of that indirect influence on your mindset because you just go, well, that's the terminology that's used around autoimmune disease. So then that's the terminology I use. Meanwhile, every time you're talking about that, like, oh, this is my body attacking itself, you're literally saying, like, I'm at war with myself. Well, when you're at war, you're never at peace, you're never at rest, you're always in this heightened state. And that's the mindset that you're taking on, which is fascinating. And I'm so glad you just mentioned that because yeah, why would we think of that? Our body is our friend. Our
Mhm.
body is our friend and it's giving us information and it's just having to speak so loudly
Yeah.
um, so that we can actually pay attention to it. Oh, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. That's amazing. So, any other kind of tips or hints that we can take with us into summer as we're trying to figure out how to maintain what we're creating? while we're going through all these different situations?
Yeah, so I think deciding ahead of time is important. That's different than planning and preparing. Deciding is like, I'm going to a party and I'm going to have 2 beers and that's it. And I've done my 2, I'm done.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to a birthday party and I know there's going to be cake. My aunt baked it. I'm going to have a piece and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. So these are things we decide ahead of time so that we can enjoy ourselves guilt-free, yet we've set a boundary for ourselves to stay within. So that's super helpful.
Yeah.
And then again, if you're going to social situations and there's going to be a potluck or a buffet, fill your plate with half vegetables or half of the best things that you can find on the table and use the other half for the junkier foods. And water. Simple as that. Just increase your water intake. Maybe even when you get home from the party, just have an extra glass of water to help your body flush things out. Maybe add a squeeze of lemon if you have one around, or some electrolytes, and that can be really helpful. We want to keep it really simple. We don't want to overthink it, but a little bit of awareness and a little bit of planning and preparing can go so far.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And really, I mean, the truth is we do that anyway, right? Like if you were to bring something to an event, I just realized my earbud died and I don't know if you can hear me. So let me just make sure.
I can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay, fantastic. Good. I lost my one earbud. This is the bane of my existence. I lost my one earbud, so I only have one earbud. So when it dies, I'm shot. Anyway, but like we plan anyway. Like if you think about, bringing a fajita meal, to a potluck, you would have planned that anyway. This is just planning more awareness. Like if I was healthy, like if I didn't have, my digestive issues, I would bring something anyway. I just wouldn't have to put boundaries and restrictions on it. And I think it's the boundaries and restrictions that make us feel what we call boundaries and restrictions that make us feel like, ugh, what a chore. But the truth of the matter is you're doing it anyway. You've just done it mindlessly up until now. Now you're just doing it with awareness, and that feels uncomfortable because most of us spend most of our time on automatic. We don't think about things nearly as in depth as we would. So yeah, anyway, I love that. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, so that just actually brought up one other idea about automatic or unconscious eating. So something that you'll notice if you start to become aware in social situations, the host puts out some chips and people just flock over to it and just start eating. And somebody might just be sitting there having a conversation and they're not even noticing, like their hand is going into the chip bag or the chip basket and it's coming back to their mouth and they're not even registering that that food is going into their body. So that is huge, is actually being aware of when you're eating. I remember when I first started, and actually probably until this day, when I started the autoimmune protocol, I can literally go back and I know exactly what I put into my body all day. I could tell you every single thing that I put into my body. And so many people have no idea what they've put into their body today. They would just think about it and be like, I totally forgot. Or under record, if they were to do a little journal at the end of the day, they would forget that they had that muffin at the coffee shop and, a few chocolate covered almonds at the water cooler, things like that. And then the other part of it is stopping when you're full. If your body says I'm full, don't try and squeeze in the extra goodies. Like there's really no point. You feel so sick after and so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it does you no good once you're done. So if you can stop yourself before that, that's just like, and honestly, it's a really interesting thing. And I don't know if this is something that comes up for more people, but when I've respected my body, it's amazing what it does to my self-esteem. And I don't mean like, if I eat within a diet, right? Like I'm not talking about that. But if I have taken care of my body and if I have respected my body in whatever it needs, meaning if it needs a treat day, it gets a treat day. If it needs, some water, I'm making sure I give it plenty of hydration. If it means, taking care of myself by making sure I'm doing a really great diet for myself, whatever it means.
I find that I respect myself so much more because I've listened to myself. Like sometimes we go like, oh, I don't feel worthy, or I don't feel this. Sometimes we don't feel worthy because we actually treat ourselves like crap. And if we treat ourselves like crap, of course, that's going to create feelings of unworthiness. That seems like a natural response, right? Like to treating yourself like junk. Oh, I don't feel worthy. Well, how do you treat yourself? Like junk. Oh, that kind of makes sense, right? But when I've taken care of myself, when I look at my, like, because I keep a food journal, when I look at my food journal, I go, yeah, you know what? I lived in integrity today. I lived in what I gave my body what it needed. I respected my body. I gave it a treat. I did all these different things. I go, I feel really good about myself. That makes sense. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like you're talking about when you're doing that mindless eating, or when you're going, I shouldn't do this, but I will. And then you feel bad about yourself. That's kind of a natural response to treating yourself like crap. If anyone else treats us like crap, we go, oh, that didn't feel good. And then we expect ourselves to have high self-esteem, even when we treat ourselves like garbage. Well, that doesn't really make sense, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I love that. I love that. I love having these discussions because I think food is such a big part of our life, and learning how to walk through that kind of those kind of experiences is so important. So you have some things that you're looking at creating in the future, but you're kind of curious about what the community needs.
Yes. So on this topic, I was thinking of hosting a workshop in July, earlier in July, so that we can take advantage of the information for the whole summer, along the lines of this. Like, what are some healthy tips and tricks for feeling your best this summer? How to handle different social situations, that type of thing. And if anybody else has any ideas or questions that come up, I would be happy to integrate that into the workshop as well. But wanted to put my feelers out there to make sure that I'm producing something that the community really is interested in and would like to attend.
I love that. So drop your notes in the comments. If you're watching this on Facebook, put a comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, what are you looking for in a workshop, and how can we create something, or how can Whitney create something that's really going to be beneficial to everyone, because that's what we want to do. Awesome. Thank you. Oh, wait, how can they get a hold of you? If someone's watching this and going, I would love to connect with her, I'd love to see what else she has going on, what are some great ways to connect with you?
So the easiest way is my website, whitneycoupland.com. It's COUPLAND. All of my social links are at the top to my YouTube channel. You can book a free consultation there. So it's all in one place.
Fantastic. That makes it super simple. Awesome. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Fearless Friday. Thank you for taking the time to be part of this amazing community. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you at a future event. Until then, take good care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.